November 14th, 1942, inside the shattered shell of a 4-story brick factory, overlooking the Volga River, the air tastes like soot and frozen metal. Smoke drifts through broken window frames, hanging low like a dirty ceiling. Somewhere beyond the rubble, German artillery thumps again, the sound rolling through the ruins like distant thunder. Snow falls lightly, settling on blackened bricks and the bodies that have not yet been moved. You can hear boots crunching on glass and ice below, slow and careful, probing for life. Private Sergei Ivanovich Petrov presses his back against a cracked concrete pillar and listens. He is 22 years old, a former tractor mechanic from His gloves are torn, his fingers numb, his breath coming out in short white bursts. In his hands is a PPSh 41 submachine gun that looks like it has already fought a war of its own. The wooden stock is scarred and darkened with oil. The metal receiver is rusted in patches. The drum magazine rattles slightly when he shifts his grip. 2 days ago, another soldier laughed when he saw it. "Where did you dig that up, museum?" The man joked, shaking his head as he checked his own rifle. Even the platoon sergeant had frowned. The weapon had jammed once during inspection. Its finish was worn nearly smooth. Compared to the clean Mosin-Nagant rifles and newer submachine guns arriving from the east, this PPSh looked like scrap pulled from a ditch. But Sergei kept it. He had found it in the rubble of a collapsed apartment block, beside the body of a dead Red Army soldier whose name he would never know. The drum magazine was still full. The action still worked. And when Sergei pulled the trigger once, just to test it, the gun roared to life, fast and violent, echoing through the ruins. 35 rounds gone in a heartbeat now, crouched inside the factory. That same weapon rests against his chest. The building around him is a maze of broken machinery and collapsed walls. Conveyor belts hang like torn fabric. Steel beams jut out at odd angles. Every surface is coated in dust, ash, and dried blood. This factory has changed hands 3 times in the last week. Germans in the morning, Soviets by nightfall, then Germans again by dawn. Today, intelligence says the Germans are coming back. Sergei hears it first. A low murmur of voices in German. The clink of equipment. The scrape of boots against stone. Then the sharp command of an officer, clipped and confident. He glances to his left. Corporal Mikhail Sokolov crouches behind a fallen machine casing, gripping a rifle, eyes wide. To the right, 2 more Soviet soldiers wait in silence, faces hollow from exhaustion. No one speaks. Everyone understands what is happening. A counterattack. German infantry is pushing forward, clearing the factory room by room. Their goal is simple: drive the Soviets into the Volga, or bury them in the rubble. A shadow moves across the doorway. A German soldier steps inside, helmet dusted with snow, MP40 held at chest level. He pauses, scanning the darkness. Sergei does not move. Another German enters, then another. A full squad, fanning out, confident, methodical. They believe this building is lightly held. They believe the Soviets inside are broken, low on ammunition, barely holding on. They do not see Sergei Dot. His finger tightens on the trigger. The PPSh explodes to life. The sound is deafening in the enclosed space. A continuous roar that drowns out thought. The recoil pounds into Sergei's shoulder as the drum magazine empties in a storm of fire. The first German soldier drops instantly, thrown backward by the impact. The second spins and collapses against a rusted machine. The rest scramble for cover, shouting in panic. Bullets tearing into brick and steel. Sergei does not stop firing. He sweeps the doorway, the stairwell, the dark corners where movement flickers. The high rate of fire turns the narrow entrance into a wall of lead. Brick chips spray into the air. Sparks jump from metal surfaces. Screams echo through the factory. The German squad is trapped. They try to return fire, but the volume of bullets forces them back. One soldier attempts to rush forward and is cut down before he takes 3 steps. Another dives behind cover, bleeding, yelling for a medic who will never come. The PPSh runs dry. The sudden silence is shocking. Sergei drops behind the pillar, hands shaking, heart hammering against his ribs. Smoke curls from the gun barrel. His ears ring. For half a second, fear floods in. Then he hears it. German boots retreating. Orders shouted in confusion. The sound of men pulling back, dragging their wounded, abandoning the push. The counterattack has stalled. Mikhail stares at Sergei, eyes wide with disbelief. That gun. He whispers. Sergei looks down at the battered weapon in his hands. The rusted metal, the scarred wood, the drum magazine now empty and hot to the touch. The gun they laughed at has just saved their position, outside. The battle for Stalingrad rages on. But inside this ruined factory, in this frozen moment, a discarded weapon has changed the fate of everyone still breathing. The silence does not last after the German voices fade. A heavier sound replaces them. Distant engines, the clatter of machine gun belts being fed. Somewhere outside the factory walls, officers are reorganizing their men. The retreat was not defeat. It was adjustment. Sergei reloads with trembling hands, snapping a fresh drum magazine into the PPSh. The metal clicks into place with a dull, reassuring sound. He wipes sweat and grime from his eyes, leaving a black smear across his cheek. His breath still comes fast, but his mind is clearing. This weapon works. That is all that matters now. The platoon sergeant, Senior Sergeant Anatoly Kuznetsov, crawls over, keeping low. His greatcoat is torn at the shoulder, his helmet dented. He looks at the bodies near the doorway, then at Sergei's gun. "How many rounds?" Kuznetsov asks quietly. "Full drum now," Sergei replies. Kuznetsov nods once. No praise, no jokes. Just a short order. "You stay here. If they come again, you open first." The factory trembles as artillery slams into the outer walls. Dust rains from the ceiling. A section of roof collapses somewhere above, the crash echoing like thunder. The Germans are softening the building before the next push. Minutes stretch into something shapeless. The cold creeps back in. Sergei presses his cheek against the PPSh's stock, feeling the rough grain of the wood. He thinks briefly of home, of engines and grease and warm metal. Then another sound cuts through the ruins. Grenades. One bounces across the floor, spinning, hissing. Sergei shouts a warning and flattens himself behind the pillar. The explosion slams his chest, filling the room with smoke and fragments. Another grenade follows. Then another. German voices surge forward, louder now. Angrier, they rush the entrance. This time they come in force. 2 squads push through the smoke, firing blindly, bullets ripping into walls and machinery. A German machine gun sets up outside, hammering the windows, forcing the Soviets to keep their heads down. The factory becomes a storm of noise and dust. Sergei leans out and fires. The PPSh roars again, its rapid fire cutting through the chaos. At this range, accuracy barely matters. The volume of bullets dominates the narrow corridors. A German soldier stumbles into view and drops instantly. Another tries to crawl behind cover and goes still. But the Germans keep coming. A grenade lands close. Sergei kicks it away just in time, the blast throwing him sideways. His shoulder slams into concrete. Pain flares, sharp and hot, but he drags himself back up. The PPSh is hot now, smoke curling from the barrel. Sergei fires in short bursts, conserving ammunition, controlling the recoil as best he can. The drum magazine vibrates against his chest, the weapon chattering like an angry engine to his left. Mikhail fires and reloads. To his right, a Soviet soldier screams as he is hit, collapsing behind cover. The air is thick with cordite and dust. Visibility drops to a few meters. The Germans try a new tactic. A squad pushes up the stairwell, attempting to flank the Soviets from above. Sergei hears them before he sees them. Boots on concrete. Heavy breathing. The metallic clink of equipment. He moves without thinking, climbing over debris. Sergei positions himself at the base of the stairwell. The space is tight, barely wide enough for two men. He waits until the first helmet appears at the top of the steps. Then he fires straight. Up the stairwell, the PPSh empties its fury into the confined space. The effect is devastating. The lead German falls backward into the men behind him, knocking them down like dominoes. Bullets ricochet off the concrete walls, turning the stairwell into a trap. Screams echo upward, followed by silence. The flank attack is over before it truly begins. When the firing finally slows, the Germans hesitate again. Orders are shouted. Whistles blow. Another push is attempted, weaker this time, probing rather than charging. Each attempt meets the same answer. Rapid fire. Close quarters. No room to maneuver. Minutes later, the German machine gun outside falls silent. Then comes the sound. Sergei almost cannot believe. Retreat, boots pulling back. Voices fading. The factory, battered and burning, remains in Soviet hands. Sergei slumps against the wall, arms heavy, fingers numb. The PPSh rests across his knees, barrel blackened, stock slick with sweat and grime. Around him lie spent casings and still bodies, German and Soviet alike. Kuznetsov approaches again, slower now, looking older than he did an hour ago. He looks at the stairwell, at the doorway, at Sergei. No one laughs now, the sergeant says quietly. Sergei says nothing. He just nods, eyes fixed on the weapon that has kept him alive. Outside, the battle grinds on. Inside the factory, the Germans have learned a hard lesson. In Stalingrad, even a rusted gun can decide life or death. The factory does not celebrate survival. It only pauses after the second German withdrawal. The ruins settle into an uneasy stillness, broken only by distant gunfire and the crackle of burning debris. Smoke clings to the ceiling, turning the air thick and sour. The men do not cheer. They do not speak loudly. They have learned that silence in Stalingrad is never a promise, only a warning. Sergei checks his ammunition slowly. 2 full drum magazines left, 1 partially spent. Each feels heavier now, not because of the weight, but because of what they represent. Every round might need to stop a man who is just as desperate as he is. A wounded soldier is dragged past him, face grey, eyes unfocused. Blood leaves a dark trail across the concrete. A medic kneels beside him, hands shaking as he works, knowing there is little he can do. Sergei looks away. If he watches too long, the fear will find a way in. Kuznetsov gathers the remaining men near the center of the factory. Their numbers are thinner now. Helmets dented, uniforms torn, faces blackened with soot and exhaustion. The Germans will come again, the sergeant says quietly. They always do. No one argues. The factory itself seems to groan around them, like a wounded animal refusing to die. Wind whistles through broken walls. Somewhere above, a steel beam shifts and crashes down, sending a wave of dust through the halls. Every man flinches, fingers tightening on triggers. Sergei returns to his position and settles in. He presses his cheek against the cold concrete and listens. His thoughts drift despite his efforts. He remembers his workshop back home, the steady hum of engines, the smell of oil instead of smoke. He wonders if the man who once owned this PPSh ever imagined it would still be firing here, months later, in the heart of a city being torn apart piece by piece. A faint sound pulls him back. Movement not rushed. Careful, German scouts. Sergei adjusts his grip, steadying his breathing. He does not fire immediately. He waits, letting the silence stretch, letting the enemy doubt what waits in the darkness. When the first shape edges into view, he fires a short burst. Controlled, precise. The figure drops without a sound. The rest pull back instantly. Minutes later, distant shouting erupts outside the factory. The Germans have learned something important. This position is not held by broken men. It is held by soldiers who know every corner, every shadow, every killing angle, and at the center of it all is a weapon they underestimated. Sergei reloads calmly, the motion automatic now. The PPSh no longer feels like scrap. It feels like certainty. Night is coming. He can feel it. And when it arrives, the fighting will only grow closer, darker, more brutal. He tightens his grip and waits. Night comes early in smoke and ash blot out what little light remains, turning the ruined city into a maze of shadows and fire glow. The temperature drops sharply. Metal creaks as it contracts. Somewhere nearby, a building burns, the flames casting flickering light through shattered windows like a dying heartbeat. Inside the factory, the surviving Soviet soldiers prepare for what they know is coming. German attacks rarely end at dusk. Sergei sits on an overturned crate, carefully disassembling the PPSh-41 with numb fingers. The weapon is filthy now. Carbon coats the bolt. Brick dust clings to the magazine feed lips. He cleans it with a rag torn from his undershirt, methodical and gentle, like a mechanic coaxing life from a stubborn engine. Mikhail watches him work. "You trust that thing now?" he asks quietly. Sergei does not look up. "I trusted it before." The truth is simpler than pride. In this city, trust is earned in seconds, paid for in blood. A runner arrives from battalion command, breathless, face pale. German units are regrouping again. Fresh troops, flamethrowers reported. The factory must be held until reinforcements arrive by dawn. There is no retreat. Kuznetsov assigns positions. Sergei is placed at a choke point between two collapsed walls where the corridor narrows to barely a meter wide. Perfect for close quarters. Perfect for the PPSh. The hours crawl by. Every sound becomes a threat. Falling debris. Rats skittering through rubble. the distant crack of sniper fire. Sergei's eyes burn from smoke and exhaustion, but he does not sleep. He grips the weapon, finger resting near the trigger, counting breaths. Then the smell reaches him fuel. A faint hiss follows. FLAMETHROWERS. The first burst of fire floods the corridor in orange light. Heat slams into Sergei's face. A Soviet soldier screams as flames lick across his coat. The fire dies back, leaving smoke and terror in its wake. German voices shout encouragement. They believe fire will break the defenders. Sergei leans out and fires into the smoke. The PPSh bucks violently. Muzzle flash strobing the corridor. Bullets punch through the haze. A flamethrower tank ruptures with a sharp crack, followed by a violent burst of fire that consumes the man carrying it. The corridor becomes an inferno. German and Soviet bodies alike scrambling away from the heat. The attack collapses into chaos. Germans retreat again, dragging their wounded, shouting warnings about the narrow corridors. The relentless gunfire. The factory does not fall. By midnight, the attacks slow. Ammunition is low. Men are slumped against walls, half conscious. Sergei reloads his last full drum magazine and waits. He thinks of the joke made about the gun, of the smirk on that soldier's face. It feels like it happened years ago, near dawn. A final German probe pushes forward, smaller, cautious. Sergei lets them come close before firing. The PPSh spits death one last time, its rhythm steady, unforgiving. Then silence as grey light creeps through the ruins. Soviet reinforcements finally arrive, moving cautiously through the debris. The factory is still standing. Still held, an officer pauses when he sees Sergei and the weapon resting beside him. That gun looks like it belongs in a scrapyard. The officer says. Sergei meets his eyes. Exhaustion dulls everything, but something else sits beneath it. Certainty. Yes, Comrade Lieutenant, he replies. But it works. The officer nods slowly. In Stalingrad, that is enough.